Chuck Shane Ross has the next priority question, number 64, and I call on the Minister.
I can confirm that neither I nor any officials in the Department of Finance were aware of the contents of the tapes which have emerged in the media until now. The contents of the tapes were not raised with my department by the Board of Management of IBRC, and my attention has not been drawn to any government member, staff, advisor or associate of the department who was previously made aware of the content of the tapes. I am further advised that the Central Bank was not aware of the tapes or the content contained therein until the recent publication. I am advised that the tapes had previously been provided by Anglo IBRC to the Gardaí and a number of other authorities involved in investigations related to Anglo-Irish Bank. I also understand that the recordings have been provided by way of discovery to certain legal proceedings involving IBRC. From the date of the nationalisation of Anglo-Irish Bank on the 16th of January 2009, the Minister for Finance directed the bank to cooperate fully with all regulatory investigations. I am advised by the bank that they fully cooperated in that context, and the bank has provided originals and copies of large data sets under compulsion and court order to the Chartered Accountants Regulatory Body, to the Garda Bureau of Fraud Investigation, to the Office of Director of Corporate Enforcement, the then Financial Regulator, and the Nyberg Banking Commission. In particular, the bank has informed me that in 2009, the ODCE seized under court search warrant approximately 3 million electronic documents and in excess of 5,000 original hard copy documents. In 2009, the Financial Regulator compelled the production of approximately 45,000 hard copy documents and approximately 9 million electronic documents. The electronic material remains in the possession of the bank as the Financial Regulator investigation was deferred in 2009 pending DPP proceedings. In 2010, the Garda Bureau of Fraud Investigation, under court order, received significant quantities of electronic and hard copy documents and recordings requested in respect of 18 employees of the bank whose lines were recorded. In 2010, the bank was compelled to provide large volumes of electronic and hard copy material to the Nyberg Banking Commission. Minutes of the meetings, as requested, were provided to CARB, to the ODCE, to GBIFI, the Banking Commission and the Financial Regulator. And in civil litigation, copies of various items, including certain recordings, were provided to parties in such litigation. I am advised that the special liquidators are taking the leaking of this material very seriously. They have written to the Gardaí and the Data Protection Commissioner in that respect. They have written to all parties whom they know to have access to this material, and I am also advised that the special liquidators intend to appoint an independent party to investigate if the leak came from IBRC or KPMG. These investigations are ongoing.
Chuck Shane Ross. 1 minute per
question. I'd like to thank the Minister for his reply. And I accept everything he says about who knew what when and when these tapes were handed over. What surprises me about his reply is this. It's well known that all conversations of this sort were recorded and that they were all taped. And what I can't understand is why nobody in the department, but particularly in the central bank, who was the regulator at the time, knowing full well that the staff of Anglo and the Bank of Ireland and Irish Life Permanent and AIB recorded all conversations, particularly in certain situations, particularly with the head of capital markets, who is a key figure in this, why the regulator in particular didn't ask immediately that the crisis broke, immediately that there was a question about solvency or liquidity, for these tapes to see what had been going on inside the bank if they had any doubt. Because the Minister said himself, and I think he's right, he said that at the time when Brian Lenihan, the former Minister of Finance, came in to the department, to the Dáil, and said, there was 7 million looked for, and then came a few weeks later and said there's a bit more looked for, and then there's a bit more looked for. He could work out what was going on, that there was something funny going on at the least, that there was a teaser being put out by Anglo-Irish Bank to the central bank to grab them in and to suck them in for more.
Thank you, Deputy.
What I want to ask really is this question. Is it not extraordinary that in those circumstances, when anybody with knowledge of this matter could guess what was happening, that the regulator who was being taken for a ride did not ask for taped conversations of what was happening inside Anglo?
Thank you. Minister?
Yes, seemingly he did, you see. As I said in my original reply, in 2009, the financial regulator compelled the production of approximately 45,000 hard copy documents and approximately 9 million electronic documents. The electronic material remains in the possession of the bank as the financial regulator investigation was deferred in 2009, pending DPP proceedings. So, as I understand it from the information provided to me, the DPP did commence an action. He compelled, I presume under court order or under his own authority, the production of all this data. But then his investigation didn't proceed because there was an indication that criminal proceedings would commence, and his investigation was suspended because of the possibility of DPP proceedings.
Thank you, Minister. I accept that. My quarrel is that he didn't ask for them much earlier than that. He didn't ask for them in 2008 when the crisis broke. He didn't ask them at the time that he was saying that they were both all the banks were solvent. He didn't look for these tapes at the time. The tapes were obviously in existence. That is an extraordinary situation. To do it under pressure under court orders is a completely different matter. His job is to regulate. Could you answer the second part of my question, maybe? What's happening now in terms of Bank of Ireland and AIB at a similar time and since? Are there tapes in existence of which we should be aware? And the second part is this. I'm worried, as I think many members of the independent group are, that the scope of the inquiry is limited simply up to the night of the guarantee. I can't understand why that is essential. I can understand the reason why the inquiry should concentrate on the guarantee. But there are other matters which should be subject to investigation as well. There was a night here which all of us can remember, which was the night of February the 7th this year, to which the Minister referred, which was the liquidation of Anglo-Irish banks. And there was confusion that night.
Thank you, Deputy.
There was chaos that night in what was happening, and there were changes going on. And I would have thought, I'm just finishing, Minister, it would be helpful and balanced and less political if the government was prepared for any inquiry to look at tapes and the facts and the events that happened on that night, and including that night as well.
Thank you, Minister.
The question of whether tapes exist in the other banks, I assume they do. I mean, if you ring a bank looking for a statement, there's usually some kind of warning on the answering machine that tells you your conversation could be recorded. But what I was unaware of was that there was internal recordings of conversations between bank executives. I thought it was the outside calls in that were being recorded. Now, I've inquired subsequently, and I'm told that it's the practice always to recall calls in and out of the Treasury. So the Treasury Department of the bank, for obvious reasons when you think about it. So I assume that there are recordings of calls in and out of Treasury in the other main banks as well. And I think the banks should be on alert if they weren't before, certainly from today on, as you have raised it, that this electronic data may be required by the Oireachtas inquiry when it's put in place.